Hi, this is Rita coming to you with a great series that I'm going to start called That Time When. So this is an episode where I'm going to talk about that time when a movie inspired me to do something. So this is that time when a movie inspired me to travel to Amsterdam. So yes, so I would like to talk about my adventure in Amsterdam, or one particular part. So the movie that I'll be looking at today is A Fault in Our Stars. I absolutely love this film. It's a movie in which we meet Hazel, Grace, and Augustus Waters. And I absolutely love this movie. It's not a movie I ever saw a promo for. I never knew the book existed. I was into like my late 30s whenever I found out about this movie. And I loved it so much that I ended up buying the book, and I actually read the book over a one-day period while I was in Iceland on a separate occasion. But the film introduced, and this is not necessarily I'm just going to be the quickest synopsis. This will be the quickest review because I'm not really here to review the movie, but to talk about a time where I was inspired by a movie. So this is where Hazel Grace, she actually meets with a young man named Augustus Waters, in which they meet at a cancer support group. The entire movie is about her challenges with her battling her lung cancer, or her lung. I don't even think she had lung cancer as much as she had issues with breathing. Did she have cancer in her lungs? I don't remember. Well, she would have had to go to the support group. Well, she had issues with breathing, so she was on oxygen. And she meets Augustus because she bumps into him because he's with his friend who is having eye surgery because he has eye cancer. So he's having both of his eyes removed. And like, it's one of those things where their kinetic energy meets and like they connect, and like, you know, this person's about to be in your life. And like, I need that energy. Like, I can't wait to have that energy. Even though if it doesn't necessarily mean romantically, but like friendships, like with my best friends that I've had for 20 years, I knew we was going to be friends. And we've been friends for 20 something years. And so like, when you have that kinetic energy, it's like one of the most amazing things. You know, your life is going to be changed. And so they meet and they begin to actually have a relationship as far as friendship. And they're exchanging like ideas about books, music, they're texting, and they become instant friends. And so the movie moves on. There's tons of reasons for you to watch it. It's one of my top, it's like probably my second. If I had a top three, it's in my top three. And the adventure goes along, and it's what makes this movie makes it different for me. Because usually with these type of genre movies, the individual usually we're waiting for the individual to pass away. This is the first time where a film draws on the strength of the main character, even in her physical situation. And it also draws on the strength of an individual we think is strong, but the main character ends up being the strength for that individual. And so what ends up happening is that they end up calling on their one wish. Hazel Grace had actually used her one wish to go to Disney World. And he cracked jokes on her. Augustus did, like, you used your wish for Disneyland. She was like, hey, I was a kid. He said, well, I still have my wish. And she was like, well, if you could go. He was like, well, I'm going to surprise you. We're going to go meet your favorite, Arthur. And she had a book that she had been reading the entire time that she had been battling with her situation. And she really took a liking to this book. So she wanted to go meet him. And the Arthur is located in Amsterdam. So Augustus uses his wish. So they actually go to Amsterdam, and then their actual being received was not very well. The Arthur was not very nice to them, and it was just so disheartening. Come to find out, they thought the whole time that the Arthur was the reason for them coming, but it was his assistant. He was very kind of bitter. He felt like there was no meaning in life, and so he didn't want to give them false hope. And so it moves on to where they actually leave his house because the Arthur is so mean to them that the assistant comes up behind them and takes them to Anne Frank house. And there starts the adventure of the movie. And if I start crying, just let me cry. I'm a baby when it comes to movies. And so they go to the Anne Frank house, and remember, Hazel Grace has issues with breathing. So actually going up the stairs and things is hard for her. And thinking about it in retrospect, I don't even see, I know this is a movie, but if this was real, how she would have even navigated that, because it was very steep and it was extremely difficult, even for me being able-bodied to navigate. And I'll talk about that. And so she goes into Anne Frank house, and she just draws upon all of the energy of Anne Frank. And you can hear the Anne Frank voice just going through her ears, because I'm assuming it's background noise from the museum speakers. And it was like the most motivation a person would ever need, because it just draws into perspective your life. Like Anne Frank was in this situation in which, you know, she had her magazines in the museum. You'll be able to see the magazines that she would look at. She would just dream about the outside world. And eventually, I think one of the exhibits within there, one of her best friends talks about how she's seen Anne in one of the detention camps and how Anne still had a sense of hope and was so happy still. And then one day she came looking for, because they would exchange things through this wall, I believe she said. And when she came looking for Anne to give her a bread, like a piece of roll, because they would exchange food because they were hungry, she said Anne wasn't there. So going back to what made me take the adventure. So after seeing this movie, I was like, I've got to go to the Anne Frank house. I'm always looking for things that'll motivate me and keep me moving and keep me inspired and give me perspective. And what I noticed about when I adventured to Amsterdam is that it is as pretty as the pictures. And when you get there, especially in front of the Anne Frank house, because Anne Frank house is right there on the canals where all of the bicycles are, you'll be able to actually see what you see in the postcards and the pictures. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I can see why individuals, because it's always like, well, why did individuals leave? Why would that, like, if you own property and where they own property, like, why would that have been your first thought? I can see why individuals try to stay and see this through, like maybe things will work out, because it's just a gorgeous place. So I ordered my tickets in advance in the States because I knew after reading all of the commentary that if you waited to go buy tickets, you may not get in, which is very true. So I bought the tickets that was the soonest that I could get in there upon my arrival into the country. And so I think I got into the country on a Saturday and I went on a Sunday. No, I might have flown in on a Tuesday and went on a Wednesday. Nope, I flew in on a Wednesday and I went on a Thursday. For some reason, I was thinking Sunday. And when I flew, I had already had my tickets. And then when I got there, I was reserved for the 12 o'clock session. So I came at 11. Well, I got there at 10 because I had breakfast on a restaurant on the side. And then I got in line and it was like, it told you for those who had pre-ordered, they would go on a separate line. And I went to the separate line and it was a line. The line was already to like, it went behind, it went down the block and around and back behind where there's like a church back there, a cathedral. Like it would be the equivalency of probably like 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks. This is the line to get inside of Anne Frank house. I'm glad I ordered my ticket online like you said. Like these people will not make it inside, I promise. And the line keeps going on the other side and it wraps back around to, hold on, let me show you. Like there. Like that's crazy, but worth it. Definitely worth it. All right, girlie, I'm signing off to go take some pictures and I need to eat. I haven't eaten today. All right, bye. Though, and what was so sad, it was 12 o'clock. The people at the end who didn't have tickets, they wasn't going to get in. There was no way. Like, it wasn't moving quick enough, and it's not a large enough space. Like, I was just like, they not even going to get in. And so I got in, and I got my tickets. I was able to get through. I think I was in line until about 1:30. And that's with having pre-purchased my ticket. So be aware if you're going to the Anne Frank house, you really do need to prepare. And so then I got in line, I went through, and so it starts with like all museums. It has a whole lot of commentary about what to expect and as you're moving through, and then you will go into the house behind the bookcase and up the stairs. And what I found about this journey is that you would be amazed at an individual's ability to still be able to communicate with such optimism about society. And it made me really double back down and look at myself and look at my own optimism. Because like if Starbucks messes up my order, that could mess up my day. But here when I went into the Anne Frank house, it made me really rethink that. And after those types of experiences, I have never been that irate customer in the line. Like you won't find me just, unless it's just something just crazy happens. But I will never be hysterical again. And I used to pride myself on if I go into a customer service situation, they don't treat me a certain kind of way, I'm going to go all off and let them. After going through, like, I visited the Anne Frank house and several other museums. I think I've not visited Auschwitz yet. It's on my list of to do. I'm not needed. I don't not have the energy anymore. And in times where I expected to go off, like one time I had a situation happen where they knew that we weren't gonna make our connecting flights, and we kept asking, and they said, "Oh, you'll make it." And when we got to the airport was closed. All of us missed our flight, so I already had it in my head. I'm gone before I can even get to the gate. The person already got me a hotel and was ready to go. So I even thank the universe for creating atmospheres in which I put in perspective the things in which matter. And Anne Frank's house was one of those, because the author actually says that we know about Anne Frank's journey, but do you see how many errands were above her name? Because there's like a ledger of all of the individuals who were taken into captivity, and it was a good thick size book because it's just names, and it's several rows, and it just made me think. And I met an individual in New York who took us on a World War II tour of the city and in Brooklyn by foot. His name, if you ever get a chance, his name is Rudy, and it's through one of the High Hostel. He actually does tours. Take his tour if you can. But he says, imagine how set back society was with the loss that we had through the wars. Because like when you think about it, those individuals could have had lineage to have descendants who created Nobel Peace winning remedies and prescriptions or solutions to societal problems. Just think about that ledger. And for what? To what avail? So if anything came from the movie and from my experience with going to Amsterdam, I learned how to be more centered and to be more realistic about expectations and the energy that I put off. And how is it really worth it to be right? At the end of the day, if someone messes up my order, is me going all off the handle going to make that order right? It's worth either A, going back and asking them to complete the order the right way in a calm fashion, or I can just leave. And I'm sure the cost and accrued, you can make it back. So if anything, it learned me how to want to aspire to be a better person. Because Anne is truly like, how she looks through her lens at life through her writings was just inspiring. And just to know that who she would have been as a woman, I wonder. She was so like curious, like myself. I was Anne Frank. Like when I think about when I was little, like I was so curious. I think it took society to kind of wear down me, where I kind of became very quiet and not as curious. But even venturing out to Amsterdam on my own solo would let you see how curious I really am. And I also was able to see the things that Augustus and Hazel Grace was able to see. So that is that one time. So I would love for you to share with me that one time a movie inspired you to do something, and tag me. Be sure to tag me. So think about that one time a movie inspired you. So that one time ... And then tag me, and also tag some of your content creators. I would love to see those movies, because right now we're in a place where I think we're all looking for the next new thing. But some of the stories behind the movies that we watched are even more infectious to make us happy and smile. So, all right. So you guys go enjoy your day, and remember to always be ready, set, and go.